Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dell's Chief Commercial Officer and President for Enterprise Solutions, Marius Haas.
Marius, good to see you. I think I can start, Steve. Last couple of years, you got a couple of questions from this audience. I could say about 3-4 years ago, they asked you, is Dell ever going to show up? Right? I think your answer was maybe not. A couple of years later, they asked the same question, right? And then what was your answer? Maybe, right? Now guess what? We're here. We're showing up in force. The story about go big or go home. We're your partners. As long as this audience wants us to be here, we will be here. We will be here with you. So we're glad to be a key partner in the Canalys events around the world. So thank you for the invitation. We're clearly going to take good advantage of that and be able to collaborate with all of you. Quick question, though. How many of you are partners of Dell's today? Okay. How many of you would like to be partners of Dell's in the future, or think in one way, shape, or form you'll be partners of Dell in the future? There we go. All right, so I have a membership card here, right? This is a presidential membership card, right? Come see me, come see Angus, who runs our EMEA team, or Cheryl Cook, who's here as well, that runs worldwide channel programs. It has, small print, all the things that, Steve, you talked about this morning, right? Real small print. It says no management dashboards, no conflict rebates, deal registration process smoothly, right? And so forth and so forth. The other added piece that wasn't on the list that Steve had was what? Make more money. Right, that's on this card as well, right? We invite you all to participate. We are excited about being here. Clearly, we're all for growth, and we want to make this whole week a very compelling week. And for those that didn't raise your hand, I'm assuming most of you are competitors. I also have a membership card for you. We're hiring a lot of people. And if you're thinking about transitioning your career, you can also participate here. You ready?
Maybe we should ask the same question at the end of the 45 minutes. Please have a seat.
Absolutely. I'm going to grab a water.
And of course, we're delighted to have Dell here. And what better indication, we believe, of Dell's commitment to the channel than having you on the keynote stage. So great to see you.
Thank you.
So let me start with a fairly straightforward one. You've been in the channel properly, when you first launched the Partner Direct program for 7 or 8 years, I would say. How important has the channel become for you today, for Dell, both in EMEA and globally? And where do you want to take it?
No, perfect question. I give you an example. When you look at the EMEA landscape and you look at the customer buying preference, right? 70% of the customers, your customers, all our customers, say that they prefer to buy through the channel. So after very careful analytics and a lot of churn in the process, we decided that maybe expanding our channel presence is a good thing, right? So clearly, we understand the dynamics of how do you reach the broader market, how do you reach the most extensive parts of the total addressable market possible in the most effective, efficient way. Globally, over 40% of our revenue flows through the channel. We're seeing enterprise growth of about 18% worldwide today in the channel. We've got partners adding every day. You saw some of the statistics on the video of 99,000 new registrations last quarter alone. 76% of those get approved right off the bat. So we're making the investments, $125 million of incremental investment year over year in the channel from last year to this year, $26 million incrementally just on IT tools and processes, which I know is a big pain point that a lot of our partners, a lot of you, have mentioned to us that we need to go improve. So big part of our go-to-market engine.
And where do you want to take it in 5 years? Where do you think you can get in terms of that 40% and shifting the needle? What's your ambition?
It's a great question. We got everyone's asked, well, what's the threshold? What's the number There isn't a number, there isn't a threshold. For us, it's more important, how do we reach the customer together in the most effective, efficient way? If that means, we got countries today that 95%, even 100% of our business is done through the channel. So it's truly a how do we best collaborate to engage the customer, find the most opportunities that are out there, and try to find a process and a cycle time where we close those opportunities effectively together. That's what we found that has been the most successful process across the board.
Okay, well, I'm sure people in the audience will have a view on that, so please put your questions into Marius. Second question is, it would seem to us that the momentum with the channel has really picked up since Dell went private. How much of an impetus has that given you to invest with partners?
Well, I thought you were going to tell me that ever since I joined Dell, the channel business has gone through the roof. But we'll give Michael.
You joined just before, didn't you?
2 months before. But I'll give Michael all the credit. Clearly, going private has been a very, very, very big catalyst for some of the cultural and also some of the business momentum that we've seen. I'll tell you, every decision, every conversation evolves around what's the best thing for the customer, right? We don't have shareholders. 2, every decision is based around how do we focus on growth? How do we focus on winning? And third but not least is how do we make the business decision-making cycle the best in the industry? I'll give you 2 stories, true stories. So our board has got 1 member that has 70% of the vote. So imagine what that board meeting is like. It lasts no more than 15 minutes, and all the decisions get made based on 1 PowerPoint slide. And you can imagine who that single board member is. That's Michael. So he's got full control of the company. That comes with good news and bad news. That means every day the executive leadership team meets with Michael. That means they meet with the board, right? So goodness is that we make fast, quick decisions. The toughness is that I better be ready, that we better be ready every time we have a conversation with Michael. And trust me, he is engaged 7/24, right? I'll give you another example, which I thought was kind of interesting, and this goes back to what Steve had on his slide, where you saw Dell, this kind of black box around it, where there were no numbers. Well, trust me, those numbers are pretty impressive. What happened is one of our competitors in this room decided they want to have access and visibility to the financial statements. Well, how do you do that? Of a private company, you become an investor. So they became an investor in the company. However, there's a nice clause in there that says that we do not have to divulge our financial data if we think that it's going to make us less competitive in the market. So we didn't divulge this financial data. It allows us to be extremely agile, extremely flexible, make the decisions for the long term. We're literally having 5, 10-year conversations, and what investments do we need to make now in order to generate the results we want long term? Right? This year, I think it's $350 to $375 million more in OpEx investments just in the core business in both R&D and coverage than last year. And we plan to do that again next year.
Okay. Of course, one of the downsides of you going private was, as an analyst firm, it meant we lost visibility into your numbers. But can you give a kind of broad guide as to what the shift to the channel has done in terms of your sales cost? Has it made you more profitable in that channel? You know, how do the two businesses compare? Are you seeing the benefits that you hope to realize by moving into the channel in terms of?
Well, I think there's 2 benefits, obviously, clearly. I mean, there's one is you have a much broader reach with a very efficient and collaborative go-to-market motion that can address a much broader set of the segments around the world. And 2, it also, we can very clearly identify and define where would the investments be made that have the quickest return, right? Albeit in the channel, in this particular market, with this particular solution, or is it in the other parts of the business that it's a more high-velocity part of the business but have lower margins, right? Where we found tremendous success is on the enterprise side. We've found partners that want to have the conversation with customers around business outcomes, talk about solutions, they building up their skill sets and capabilities. This morning, great conversations with folks at Kelway, folks in the Netherlands of Nelta. Mike was there, CompuCom with Simone and Dieter. Wonderful discussions about what can we do more together and how can we drive a more solution-oriented conversation with the customers. So very clear opportunities and prioritization of activities and the willingness on our side to clearly invest in those partners that invest in Dell.
Okay, and one final question from me before we open it to the floor. Over the last 12 months, Dell has very clearly stepped up into two-tier distribution. And obviously you now have some new partners here at this event and around Europe and other parts of the world. What has that meant for your business? What has that done to your ability to reach partners?
Well, let me ask, how many of the partners that raised their hand before bought through distribution over the last, let's say, 12 months? Right? And I can ask the audience as to why, but give you an example, two main themes. One, it does provide an opportunity for us to be more aggressive with the SLAs that customers expect and have product available closer to the partner, closer to the customer. Critically important. Two, we also heard loud and clear that we still have some deficiencies in our tools and our processes. Obviously, that goes back to why we're making the investments we're making. Distribution has been in the channel business for a very long time, and they truly help us in some of those capabilities that are critically important to be able to hit that kind of business velocity that our partners and our customers expect. So those are two key reasons. Now, in emerging markets, an example, here in the Middle East and in Africa, 90% of our business is flowing through the channel and through distribution already. So, and we're now building the capabilities out in the Western and other parts of Europe.
Okay, very good. And there may be other questions on that going later on. So let's go into the Q&A that we've got from the audience. First one's quite a big question. The industry's going through a lot of change, PCs in decline, cloud gaining traction, server and storage shipments slowing. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth with your partners in EMEA in the next 2 to 3 quarters?
Well, I think it's very healthy in the sense that the runway we have with our partners in this market is enormous. Right? I think if you look at all the statistics and you look at the share of wallet opportunity that we collectively have, it's better than with most other competitors in the market. Right? So aggressively, we can go together into those customers that are looking for that end-to-end solution provider, especially post-November 1. We would be that clear partner for those customers and for those partners. And we feel as though that at least every scorecard, and like we're not looking at a lot of scorecards, but every scorecard I have seen, it's tremendous growth for our partners, tremendous growth, especially in the enterprise space. And for them, that's exactly where they want to be going and adding more and more value to customers. And we've been very open about saying we're not going to create a hard deck model. We think that there is opportunities for partners in the largest of enterprises where they have relationships, where they can sell new lines of business into that we have historically not been able to sell. So we think that there's opportunities across multiple segments, and there's plenty of runway that we can go after together. And so far, everything I've seen from our partners here in Europe, this has been very consistent, has been very positive, and the growth that they're seeing has been very, very healthy. And it is a consolidating market, and it is an extremely competitive market. Well, in the PC space, what we've seen, consolidating to 3 main players. So anyone under below the top 3 are losing share, top 3 are gaining share. Okay, we want to be aggressive in gaining from the ones that are losing, but obviously we will be also very aggressive in the consolidation market across the board.
Okay, well, you touched on a number of different areas there. Let's stick with the first one. So, with your commercial hat on and enterprise solutions, which is more interesting? Which you see as the biggest growth opportunity for partners? Is it in the enterprise portfolio? Is it in PCs? I mean, PCs are in a more challenging way probably than some of the enterprise products. We look at the dynamics of the market, and from Dell's perspective, are you going to push the enterprise message more strongly to channel, or are you not looking at it like that?
No, well, it's a holistic dynamics. I mean, I think that customers are looking for, every time I talk to a customer, they're not looking for more vendors, right? They'd like to have a few vendors that they can look to really satisfy and deliver all of the key business needs and IT technology needs for their business. Right? So the notion of being able to have devices all the way through into the data center with software, with services, is clearly a value proposition that they expect. Now, I do believe there's differentiation on the PC side. For us, the conversation around manageability and security is huge. On the commercial PC side, for sure, and we have that conversation every day with customers, especially how it transcends into the data center and how you then also secure that data as you move it to the data center, right? So it is a holistic conversation. We do believe that customers are buying in that capacity. We do believe that, for example, in the thin client business, the VDI business, it starts with what is the experience I want at the end user level, but then the conversation very quickly transcends into, okay, what applications am I going to be running? What is the type of latency that I can afford in order to run those applications in the remote locations I have? What's the storage and compute ecosystem I need to have with it? And what kind of software is going to help me manage it? That is an end-to-end conversation. That isn't I only have a PC conversation, I only have a server conversation, I only have a storage conversation.
And you want partners to play in that end-to-end.
Absolutely.
As a provider of that end-to-end.
Absolutely. We've seen tremendous growth with partners in the enterprise space, and we want them to really be able to serve their customers holistically with a solutions-driven approach. And we believe we can be that partner to enable them to do that.
Okay. In terms of the go-to-market, I think this is an interesting question because it brings up an earlier point you mentioned about hard decks. So the question is, one of the challenges for your partners is that Dell's multi-channel, I think you can also call it omni-channel, don't you? Mm-hmm. Strategy, or I've heard it as omni-channel, means you're continuing to pursue both direct and indirect growth targets. I don't know if that's true or not. How can you successfully balance those two objectives without creating problems for your partners?
Our core objective is to grow in excess of market and grow in excess of our competition. That is our core objectives across the board. That then will trigger and create a business model that we're extremely excited with and about. We want the business where customers are asking us to serve them directly to grow in excess of market and to grow in excess of the competition. We want the business that is generated through the channel to grow ahead of market and ahead of competition. That happens to be growing much faster than the other part of the business. So we think that the engagement that we're having with our partners and the opportunities that we're seeing with our partners is working out well. We want more. We can do more. And I think, again, goes back to the comments I made earlier about the addressable market and the share of wallet that we collectively have today. The opportunity is enormous.
Okay. How will Dell ensure, and this goes back to your point about the end-to-end, how will Dell ensure it stays agile while offering everything from PCs to printers to storage and software? Can you do that? Can you remain agile?
We're doing it today. It's I think we are very focused on making sure that we have one engagement model with the customer and one engagement model with our partners. We don't have individual sales organizations by lines of business. We said there is an account executive, there's a channel account manager, and they're responsible for 100% of the business within those accounts, within those partners, right? We want to make sure that as we present those solutions to customers, it is presented in a way that best solves the business problems, right? So it's already a natural motion for us. Sure, we grew up in the high velocity transaction space. That is our heritage. Well, how can we take that natural velocity, speed of doing business, and translate that into opportunities into the enterprise space as well together with our channel ecosystem? And we think we can do that, and keeping it simple has been a core rule. When we start to get too complex, I expect all of you to help us. Right? The advisory boards that we have have been fantastic. Key messages we receive is economics are good. Keeping it simple is good. We have some tools and processes we need to improve. We're investing in that. And always keep engaging the partner community as to what else we can do to enable their business around the training, around the demand generation and around customer engagement pieces.
Okay. We have a couple of questions which are along the same sort of theme. When will Dell make the partner model the only model, or would you ever do this and skip direct sales? And I guess let's cover the next one as well. Does the Dell sales force have enough channel DNA? Can they change their reflexes?
It's look, I mean, who's recently joined my team? I'll give you an example. Right? And these are known names. Right? Rory Reed, right? Former COO at Lenovo, is on my staff. Cheryl Cook, who runs channels for us, has a long history of being in the channel. I've got key executives from an old employer of mine in Paul Perez, Jim Ganthier. These are all people that grew up in a very channel-centric model, right? We're going to build the DNA. We are building the DNA, and when you look at the track record of us doing what we said we're going to go do, and our commitment to the channel being firm, we're unwavering, committed, we're putting investments behind it, I have no concerns whatsoever in our ability to drive that kind of business, that kind of growth momentum on an ongoing basis with all of you as key partners.
But taking that, just kind of following that through, you know, you can build that culture, but I mean, you mentioned you don't want to set a hard deck. You want to maintain that kind of omni-channel strategy based on the customer choice. But can you do that without, for example, going back to the frustrations of the partners that Steve talked about this morning, you know, clear rules of engagement about how partners can engage with Dell and how Dell will engage with partners? Yeah,
I mean, it's I'll give you an example. I gave you the opportunity card, right, earlier today. It's half tongue-in-cheek, but seriously, we added 1,000 sales makers last quarter. We're going to do it again this quarter around the world, right? And it is with one intention only: create more opportunities, create more demand, engage customers, find the opportunities, work collaboratively with our partners to close those opportunities as quickly as possible, right? Get a better share of the opportunities that are out there and effectively and efficiently close them. Right? That's what we're doing. Someone is going to interpret that as, oh, they're going back to their old model, they're going to go direct. That's not the intent. That's not what we're doing. We see tremendous growth and opportunity on the enterprise side. We actually need a lot more of you from a partnering perspective in the enterprise to be able to cover the opportunities that we're already finding today, let alone when that team becomes fully productive in the engagements in a territory-based model. You will have the opportunity then in a territory-based model to engage deeply with every one of those team members. It is not a hard deck, you go find those opportunities, you go do your own thing, you go close them. We want to collaborate with you to find the opportunities and help you close them. We think, and we have seen that to be the most successful model, right? We have to have skin in the game to create those opportunities, right? And again, you know, as I stated before, all of the information, all of the data that we have shows that we have so much runway, especially in the enterprise, to sell more lines of business, sell more solutions with all partners together.
Do you think partners today are selling effectively into the new buyers of IT? Do you think that the partners need to do something, and can you help them kind of make that step? Because, you know, we're all talking about the transformation of the customer. Mm-hmm. Are you helping partners with that? And do you have a strategy around enabling partners to sell into that?
Yeah, no, I look at one of the programs we got inside of Dell, and we're making that available to our partners as well, is a license to sell. It is our training mechanism that has at its core, do you have the core basic selling skills in order to build the right relationships, to have the right conversation with the customer? And two, do you have the right product knowledge in order to have an effective conversation? that turns into an opportunity, right? I'll tell you that we're okay at building relationships. We need to do a better job at understanding the solution selling components of it. And there's a clear effort within our environment to make sure we get really, really good at that. In conjunction, this goes back to your earlier question about where can we use more help. Clearly, the partner ecosystem that has done a very good job in building that capability inside of their environments, that's what we need more of, want more of, because it certainly complements the opportunities we want to find with the partners that can then help close those more complex solution selling capabilities.
So it goes beyond the technology, you think, or, I mean, in terms of driving the value proposition?
Yes, in the sense that where we've gone through the process of the training, where we've gone through the process of understanding the technology, what has been most effective is where in territory the conversations between the partners and the Dell sales teams happen, where we do joint account planning, where we both understand very clearly what the opportunity is and what partners have the right skill sets to be able to close that opportunity. And in those engagements where they get on for example, a weekly cadence, where our sales team, our partner sales teams get together and do that deal review, that's where we're seeing tremendous results, because it becomes a natural extension of the Dell family into tactical execution based on opportunity that are identified. So yes, it does go beyond purely training certification. It goes into how do we now act together in the field together as one team. Okay.
It sort of ties into this question here, because Dell has been, over the last few years, investing heavily in lots of areas of the enterprise portfolio: security, software, management, and so on. So, and this isn't very likely, but if someone had never heard of Dell and they ask what you do, how do you describe the company now?
The company has matured significantly. I'll tell you a story. The first time I met Michael, it was about 5-6 years ago, and we were happened to be in Boston, and that was the only place that we could coordinate and have a conversation together. It was a dinner at a restaurant, and he said, "Marius, I want you to come join the team." And I said, well, at that point in time, the opportunity wasn't exactly what I thought was the right thing for my career, but I said, "Michael, I tremendously respect you." I go, "But here's a challenge that I want to give you." I said, if you looked at all the reports and you looked at the relevancy rating and all the surveys that were done, Dell used to be a number 1 or number 2 as a preferred partner, most strategic partner for CIOs about 15 years ago, right? And I told Michael, I said, we've eroded that position, or you have eroded that position in the last number of years, 10 plus years. I said, how do we now become, and the challenge is, how do we then become the most relevant partner again for those critical IT decision makers, right? And I'll tell you, Michael, it wasn't because I told him, he clearly knew, embarked on a very aggressive acquisition spree, spent significant capital in building out capabilities that would make us a strong partner for the CIOs in all competencies. Now, taking the company private was yet another testament of his resolve, his commitment to really make sure that he's going to drive this transformation and drive having this company be the most relevant company for those IT decision makers, because we're now under an operating model, operating agenda where we have unbelievable flexibility. And we don't have to get shareholder approvals. We just go do it, right? And that is very different than what we were just when I started here. But more importantly, it allows us to take advantage of those investments that were made to help transform ourselves even faster as a true end-to-end enterprise solution providers to our customers.
So when you do the research now and you talk to customers, do you think that
we have
needle
moved
has shifted?
Up. Yes, it has. And you can do the research yourself, but it has.
Okay.
Executive Research Board was the source. Go ahead and look at it. I should have said Canalys was the source, I know. But I think if you do the research, I'm sure, Steve, you would say, yes, that is the case.
Okay, here's an interesting one on global programs. So we talked about, well, Steve mentioned it earlier today. What does Dell do to allow for global coverage of your channel partners and customers and participation for partners with global presence?
No, it's a great example. I'll give you two examples. One is Uber. I know Uber has had mixed results as it pertains to being able to provide services in some countries here in Europe, in other countries more successful. But Uber is a Dell infrastructure customer through a partner called Redap. They happen to be Seattle-based, but key part of the capabilities that they had was to be able to provide whole-in stack solution, ready to go application, just plug and play at any destination, any country that Uber has decided to do business in, right? Clearly for us, the integration capabilities that partner brought to the table was critically important. But secondly, the ability to go expand geographically into countries that our customer, collective customer, Uber, wanted to go deploy. Clearly, this is one of these high growth, high beta programs that they're embarking on, but clearly the flexibility and agility of that partner is critically important for us. We can see examples across the board here in Europe with that same mentality in mind. Conversation we had this morning with the folks at Kelway. Big partner of the year for us in the UK. They have recently struck a stronger partnership with CDW. How can we leverage the Kelway relationship and expand their presence around the world and engage in that capacity in multiple fronts? Let's go do the account mapping. Let's go see where their strengths are, where our strengths are, where we have shared customers, and where can we help them grow.
And CDW is now obviously a global partner, but what about partners who are operating in region who want to be able to support global customers? Will you support that model as well?
Yes, we do that today. Go back to the Uber example. Right? We have a global 500 program that specifically touches the customers that have unique needs for an operational cadence that is consistent around the world. And we've got partners that provide support for that around the world.
Okay. This is probably quite a specific example, but I guess it talks to Steve's comment about relationships. So why is there so much staff turnover in Dell? As a partner, it's frustrating to be presented with a new contact every 3 months. Are you trying to drive consistency in those?
No, great question.
Relationships?
Great question. It was I'll give you an example. We had a deterioration of our customer satisfaction rating a couple years back. And we dug down deep into what were the core drivers of it. And the number one driver was account transition, or a churn in the sales engagement model. And part of it was self-inflicting, meaning that every year we go through the process of doing the account segmentation. And if you were a small business or a medium-sized business or a large institution, and you graduated up and down that ecosystem, it drove an automatic account transition model, which was self-inflicting. Shame on us for doing it, right? So we went through the process of understanding, okay, how do we drive to a less than 10%, hopefully down to 0 as much as possible, account transitions or churn. We focused on that for the last 12 to 18 months. Right now, we have the highest customer satisfaction rating in the history of the company based on the fact that we focused on making sure the engagement model with our partners and engagement model with our customers was driven with a consistent and zero churn approach. Look, you can then analyze it pretty quickly. Said, what is the single biggest metric for productivity of a sales maker? Single biggest one. It is time in or tenure in role. The longer that rep has been with that account, the longer that rep has been doing that job, he or she is the most productive of any other single lever there is. So again, right, careful analytics, we decided that was dumb, right? So we focused on the things that we knew we had the right knowledge base to say, that's the right approach. So we haven't perfected it, for sure, but you should be seeing much more consistency and much more focus on making sure we have this customer for life, partner for life mentality in the organization.
So you're talking about partner account managers as opposed
Both.
to customer end,
Both.
and customer account managers.
Both.
Okay, you're applying the same thinking.
I'll give you an example. Last year, we added 72,000 accounts. Last year, commercial accounts. We lost 72,000 accounts last year, right? And when you did and then when we called those accounts and we asked them why and that's basically when I said lost, they didn't buy from us within a trailing 12-month period. And they said, look, we love Dell. We love your products. No one called us, right? And part of it was we were putting an inside rep as an example and loaded them up with 250 accounts. Guess what, right? Most of you and your team members will say that they close 80% of their quota with 14 accounts, right? So that means what happens, and then 100% of your quota within 25, 30 accounts. What happens to all those other accounts? Don't get touched. No one talks to them. Guess what? Competition will talk to them. So we wanted to make sure of is how do we cover with the right density, the right accounts with consistency and engagement model, and that's when you start to layer in a much more programmatic way the ability to tell our partners and our partners here where should they be focused on, what solutions should they be focused on, what account should they be focused on, with a much higher probability of success because we know those accounts well and we know we're covering with the right density.
And were those mainly direct accounts that you lost? Are the partners helping you to improve the retention?
In that case, yes. But I think there was holistically, I'm sure there were accounts in there that had an omni-channel approach as well.
Okay. I'm going to put two more questions to you. One which is around the two-tier channel. So, and also related to deal registration, because I know deal registration is a big platform for Dell, but there is a threshold, isn't there? So the two-tier channel approach is still not on an eye level with direct sales, especially in small deals where we still compete against each other, where no deal registration is possible due to the overall value. Are you going to fix that at all? Are you going to bring down the value of deal registration, make those deals, the smaller deals, available via deal registration?
Yes, we know this is one of the inputs that we've received from many of you saying deal registration process needs some improvements. We're working on that. We're going to get that done. There was a component of it. We were trying to drive greater efficiency and greater velocity, and one of the mistakes we made is that we created a scenario where, okay, there's a deal threshold dollar value that we're going to focus on and speeding up. And then what we did is we created scenarios like this where we didn't create an opportunity for some of the higher velocity, lower dollar deals. Clearly need a fix. We are fixing it. Make sure that's effective for our team members.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay,
are you going to ask me, because Steve is going to go crazy here, the Surface. You're going to ask me that question, right?
The Surface, yeah.
How many of you want us to talk a little bit about the Surface thing? Right? Only a few.
Okay, this is the final question. You're reselling the Surface. What does the Surface book mean to you? And what is the real opportunity for Dell in that? You're competing with Microsoft. Microsoft's competing with you. Why are you doing it?
Great question. So here, as many of you know, there is a multifaceted relationship that gets established with companies like Microsoft, especially in organizations like Dell, who's been doing business with Microsoft for a very, very long time. As part of that, certain things emerge that you would say, yeah, maybe that's not a logical thing that you would naturally put independently in and of itself. Now, here's what happened. We had more and more customers, especially the high-end enterprise customers, come to us and say, I've got more of these devices that are arriving. I was going to say surfacing, but I don't want to say that. That are arriving within their environment that their customers have selected they want to use. But we want it to be managed and deployed by Dell. And we want it to have the same support ecosystem that you provide us and all the other clients and all the solutions that you provide us. So I want a consistent engagement model. So we could tell those customers, no, not interested because it's a competing product. Or we could say, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're going to take care of you. And that's what we decided to do.
Okay, and the Surface Book?
We're
I mean,
on
that puts you in direct
no
competition.
plans at this point in time to do
Well, no,
anything
they're
with this one.
competing directly with you on that.
Yeah, we're not so happy about that. Yeah, and so
All right.
it's talk about hyper. It's a hyper competitive market. We think that we're well positioned to compete in a very competitive market. We'll take that as another challenge, and we'll go run. And with a strong partner ecosystem, we will prevail.
Okay, Marius, thank you for your candor. Thanks for all your honesty, and
Yep.
good to talk to you.
Thank you.